Hello friends and welcome back to Haas of Props. Today we're going to be focusing on the last piece of this build, IG-12's arms. They are adjustable at the elbow. They can also be adjustable at the shoulder if you would like. I will show you in a minute how I accomplish that. But again, PVC pipe, EVA foam, a few screws, and you're good to go. So let's get started. Alright, we're going to start with two 14.5 inch pieces of 3/4 inch PVC pipe, and we want to flatten the pipes on one end. So I took a heat gun and heated about 3/4 of an inch on the ends until they were super soft. These pieces will create the upper arm. Then I line this up against a piece of wood and use a smaller piece to push and flatten the pipe. The wood protects both my cutting mat and my hands and also gives a nice edge to push against. Now I just need to hold it in place for a while until it cools a little. Once cooled, I trimmed the edges to round them off and pre-drilled a hole like this. Then I softened the other end of the pipes, pressed it slightly so the sides taper in but don't touch, drilled some holes on the same plane as the other ends, and then cut some notches out like what we did for the shoulder sockets in the chest video. Now, part A, which I made with two pieces of 10mm foam, can be wrapped around the piece of PVC like this, about 2 inches down the pipe from the top pre-drilled hole. To make part B, I begin with a 4mm foam circle and round off the edges, then I glue this to a matching circle with contact cement. The center hole can be cut out and then the piece can be slid onto the top of part A like so. Then 8 pieces of part C can be glued onto the top of part B with CA glue. Part D can be attached to part A with CA glue as well. You want part D to be placed on the arms so that it's about in the area where the biceps should be. Then part E can be placed just like this on the top and bottom of each part D. While I do this, I would appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you can be notified when the IG painting video is released. Part F is glued like this on the short ends, and this can then be glued onto part D like this. Part G is 16 of these small circles. 4 can be glued onto part D in each of the corners. Then, in the center, the larger circles can be glued. Then, part H can be glued onto the PVC right under part A. I made mine with 2 layers of 6mm foam, but if you're lucky enough to have 12mm foam, that'll work as well. Part I can be cut and carved from 20mm foam. The top bevels slightly, and the top center has a circle carved into the surface. I did this the same way I made the details on the backpack area in the chest video. This piece can be glued onto part H, but make sure that you place it on the side that you want to function as the front of the arm. For the lower arms, cut 2 pieces of 3/4 inch PVC pipe that measure 15 3/4 inches long. Flatten, cut a curve, and drill a hole in one end, and on the other end I softened the pipe and pressed the end slightly so I was left with an oval shape. This will slip into the notch in the upper arms and be secured with some bolts and wing nuts later. Part J can be glued onto the lower arm pipe with contact cement, and the seam can be cleaned up with a Dremel. Parts K are cut from 10mm foam and have circles carved into the top and bottom surface, and then these can be glued onto part J about 3/4 of an inch from the top edge, in line with the flattened bit of PVC, and the second will attach like this. To make part L, attach the pieces of 2mm foam to each side of the 6mm foam pieces. Since these are skinny pieces, you can use CA glue to make assembly easier. I only worked on a little area at a time, that way I could make sure I get the edges aligned correctly without having to deal with a lot of glue. Once these are made, they can be glued onto part J. Each arm only gets one, and you want to make sure it is on the area that will be the bottom of the forearm. Part M is made by stacking some 10mm, 6mm, 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 and another 10mm circles together. These make the wrist. The pipe will sit like this, so you want to carve out a slight channel for it to sit into, then it can be glued in. Part N is cut from some 4mm foam, but we're going to attach it here on the smaller 4mm side, not the flat side. You can see here how it sticks out from the pipe more than if it were on the flat side. Then parts O can be glued onto each side of the PVC between part N and the wrist. And the smaller circles attach above part N like this, and we can use the sanding drum on the Dremel to round them off slightly. Six of part P can be attached around this piece of 10mm foam, and then I took a small drill bit and touched the center of each circle ever so slightly, just enough to get a small dent. I also hit the center of the large part N circles as well. Then I swap out the drill bit for this carving tip, and I carve some grooves into the PVC to make it look like there are joints that would function like IG does in the series. I cut a bunch of part Qs out of 2mm foam, and then took one piece and a piece of 17 gauge wire, and the two can be glued together with CA glue, like so. Then a second part Q can be glued on top with contact cement. I made sure to press firmly around the entire piece to ensure that every edge was nice and tightly sealed. And now with the wire, the finger is now adjustable. After I had made 8 fingers out of part Q, I could then add 2 part Rs to each finger. These can be added with CA glue, and I found it best to align a little at a time, that way I wasn't getting glue all over everything. Then once the finger is finished, it should look like this. Next, I took the small drill bit with the Dremel and drilled some small divots into the circles on each side of the finger. Next, a part S can be attached to one of the fingers like this, then another finger can be glued onto the other side of the part S. You want to make 2 sets of these double fingers. Next, I repeated the same process with part T. Then these sets of double fingers can be attached to the bottom circle of part M. One set of part T and one set of part S are attached to each arm so that all the fingers are about centered on the bottom circle. Next, the forearm pieces can be attached to the upper arms. To do that, I'm using these bolts with corresponding wing nuts. I just align the pre-drilled holes in the PVC and press the bolt through and tighten with a wing nut. To get it really tight, I needed to use a screwdriver to keep the bolt from spinning. Parts U are assembled just like the knees and the leg video. All the small seams are attached with contact cement, but in this case we're going to leave the large seams open. To keep the arms posable and IG dismantleable, I'm going to use Velcro on the large seams. This way I can always have access to the bolts. I'm using this sticky backed Velcro. That way it can just be stuck to the foam and we're good. Make sure to place one piece on top on one side and on the bottom of the other like this. This way the Velcro will be hidden. Next, I attached 6mm triangular foam dowels to parts U, the same way I did when making IG's kneecaps. The covers can then be attached around the elbow joint, and now the arm is still posable and adjustable. I use the same process to make parts V, aka the shoulder joints, where the arms attach into the shoulder sockets. And there you have it, IG's arms. So now he's complete, and if yours is anything like mine, made of many colors, I always think builds look so comical at this stage before they get cleaned up, which we'll be doing shortly. And there you have it. As you can see, we have some adjustable arms on IG. All you have to do is put them in place, tighten the wing nuts, and you can have him posed in any position you want. You could change this up a little bit to where you could have his arms sticking out to the sides to support his blasters. So just a few minor changes and you're good to go. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends and family, don't forget to like it, and tune in for the last video, which I will show you how to paint this entire thing. And remember, if you are building any of my builds or using any of my templates, feel free and tag me at Haas of Props on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because I would really like to see your fantastic work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.